It's Youth Sunday! Good morning. My name is Sutterisch, and while people often think that I myself am a youth, I have the honor of serving as the canon for Christian formation for the Diocese of Ohio. So as part of the bishop's staff, I work with children and youth and young adults all across our region. It's been a pleasure to spend more time with the youth at Trinity Cathedral in recent weeks as we try our hand at virtual youth group and start confirmation class with 7 bright and passionate teens. Now, whenever I get to really talk to youth, I am always struck by just how hard it is to be a teenager today. Even before minor inconveniences like, a global pandemic, the pressure and crises and existential dread that has existed in all generations is alive and well in Generation Z. A recent article in The Economist was able to give me that statistical evidence to back up what I hear from our kids, and the article was titled, "Gen Z is stressed, depressed, and exam obsessed." They are lonely and suicidal. They're scared about mass shootings and the climate. They're feeling pressure to get good grades and good jobs. It's hard to be a teenager. But this generation is not the first one to suffer, right? They're also not the first ones to thrive amidst the suffering. When times are rough, we can always turn to Scripture. The Bible is full of people surviving suffering. This is actually what Peter's letter is about. He's writing to a diaspora of baby Christians who are being persecuted. The people Peter is writing to are essentially being bullied for their faith through beatings, social ostracism, mob violence, and insults. We might be able to relate to parts of that. I was discussing some t-shirt designs with youth a couple months ago, and they disclosed to me that if the shirts had anything about God or church, they couldn't or wouldn't wear them to school because they'd be bullied. So yeah, Peter's letter is relatable. That's the kind of thing that these early Christians are facing when Peter tells them, do not fear what they fear, and do not be intimidated. Now in my head I think, easier said than done there, Peter. When the world is scary, when people bully me, when there's a ton of unknown and angst in my life, it's sometimes hard to remember to keep my conscience clear, as Peter writes. It's hard to turn the other cheek, to stay strong and be brave. It's hard to remember that the one whose life is the basis of my faith, the one who loves me and saves me, no matter who I am or what I've done, he suffered too. Of all people in the Bible, Jesus knows what it's like to suffer. He was the only one who suffered without any reason at all. He gets it. And when we meet him in the Gospel of John today, he's busy teaching his disciples what it means to be a Christian in the real world, suffering and all. Now here's what Jesus doesn't say ever. He never says, if you follow me, you'll never suffer. He never says, convert, follow me, get confirmed, join vestry, get ordained, or whatever, and your faith will be perfect and your life will be easy. He doesn't say that being blessed and loved means our lives will be cush. No, what he says is, I will not leave you orphaned. I will not leave you orphaned. God will never leave us to suffer alone. God will never abandon us, no matter how hard life is. God doesn't want us to suffer, and so God sticks with us. God suffers alongside of us. Like when someone you love very much is going through a hard time and you just feel it with them, God feels that with us. Jesus tells his disciples, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Now this isn't like a if-then trick, like when I might tell a member of my quarantine, if you love me, you'll let me have 10 cats. Or, if you love me, you'll do the dishes. Jesus says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Let's remember the two greatest commandments: to love God with our whole selves, with everything we are, and to love our neighbors. You might sum it up as love God, love your neighbor, change the world. We should really write that down somewhere. These commandments are about love and they're about life. Jesus goes on to say that because he lives, we might live, really live. God will always be with us. We're not alone. God abides in us. Another way to say it might be that God remains in us. God walks alongside us. God dwells in us. That is good news. The great teacher and guide Henri Nouwen wrote about this characteristic of Christ, that Jesus is neither an optimist nor a pessimist. When Jesus talks about hope, it's not a hope that things will get better or worse. Instead, Nouwen says, his hope is built upon the promise that whatever happens, God will stay with us at all times and in all places. This kind of hope is not about waiting for something to happen. It's not about trying to create a life without suffering. It's about finding God in our lives today, right now. It's about opening our eyes, using our gifts and our natures in the world around us to see that Christ is indeed with us. Because Christ lives, we can live. Right now in the season of Easter, our stories are about Jesus after he is revealed as Christ through the resurrection, but before he ascends to heaven. So he tells his disciples, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Again, God will abide in us, remain in us, even if it's not in the form of Jesus of Nazareth walking with his disciples. Christ will transcend time and space. So let's try it. Where is Christ for you today? How do you see God remaining with you in tough times? That's the muscle we can build every day, and the practice that comes in handy on hard days. God shows up in so many ways. Will we notice it? Try using your 5 senses. Can you use your sense of touch to ground yourself in the divine, what Tillich calls the ground of being? Try it right now. Where are your feet? Have you taken a deep breath today? Let's do it. Let's take the deepest breath we've taken all day. Where might you hear God speaking to you right now? Maybe it's in really good music or the voice of a friend in a phone call. Where do you smell God? Maybe it's in the creation of the natural world that is surrounding us this spring. What about taste? How do you taste God? Perhaps through the taste of love that comes from something delicious. The love from the plants and minerals, the love from the farmers and the transporters and the chefs, even if the chef is you. And finally, where do you see God? Christ abides with us. Christ dwells with us. Christ remains with us. How might you open your eyes, your eyeballs and the eyes of your heart, the eyes of your soul, to notice God, even in the hard times? May we all remember that God is with us and God's not going anywhere. Amen.